So let's start discussing power and politics for today, chapter 13. The learning objectives for today is we want to figure out what's the difference between leadership and power and how they can be confused between the two. And we'll also talk about the three bases of formal power and the two bases of personal power. And also, discuss things about role of dependence. Unless we are dependent on somebody, we don't seek to be influenced by others. So people draw power because others are dependent on them. We'll also identify power or influence tactics and what happens when employees, members of the organization indulge in politics. And I'm sure because you all worked and had some work experience, you figure out there's plenty of politics everywhere. Wherever there are human beings, unfortunately, there is politics. We'll also talk about the causes and consequences of abuse of this power and how politics work in organizations and what are the causes, consequences, and ethics of political behavior. So, not my favorite chapter, but again, it affects, influences everyone. So, we got to know what is the importance of politics, what are the bases of power, who influences whom, and what kind of consequences we have because of people who can sometimes abuse power. Now, power refers to this capacity that you can influence someone else's behavior, their effort, maybe influence the outcomes, events. Your ability to influence either people or the way they behave or the kind of effort they put in or certain events and outcomes at the workplace, that is what is referred to as power. Power may exist but not be used. I think that's the greatest power, that you know you're powerful and you're grateful that you have the power to make an impact, positive impact. You're not willing to use it unless it has to be used, and you're using it for a common good, and you're not being selfish. And if you use power in positive ways and not just to manipulate others, not just to take an advantageous position of others, I think then you're not playing politics. You're using power for a good cause. So I can draw my power from different sources. Suppose information is power for me, knowledge is power for me. Having done quality research is of some power for me. My experience with industry and consulting opportunities, I think, is a source of power for me. My experience doing plenty of administrative responsibilities is again a source of power for me. But those power bases are being used for what? Either for serving my students or helping my colleagues or assisting whatever the school does and making sure we engage our stakeholders. It could be industry, alumni, students and their families, accreditation bodies. We want to engage with these stakeholders in positive ways and create an impact and influence that is going to, matter to a larger community and not just to, it's not just important for myself. In that sense, I'm able to use my power for a common good. And I'm using power to influence positively the communities that I serve. So obviously that power comes because what we call as dependence. If they need some work, they know this is the person they have to go. This is the individual who has the expertise and information.
I started the daily log thing, but just check and add whatever. Mm-hmm.
You have questions,
Yeah, I
Ivana?
fixed it. I don't know.
Ivana, you might
Yeah.
want to just mute yourself if you're not talking to the class. Thank you. So a person can have power over you if he or she controls something you desire. Suppose you join a company and you have a leader who has got tremendous experience, knowledge. You want that knowledge. You want to learn from this X or Y individual. And that is why you're willing to seek out advice. You're willing to take them as a role model. That means you're dependent on them for a specific reason. So you could actually seek out that information. You let your leader have an influence on you. You let your leader have that possibility of exercising power on you, the ability of the leader to influence the way you think, the way you conduct your business, your learning processes, and your contributions at the workplace. So my boss, say for example, is powerful not because he's strong physically. He's powerful because of his knowledge, his qualifications, his credentials, his longitudinal experience, his wisdom, and his, of course, his position, the legitimate position that he has, being the dean himself. So that all these reasons make him powerful. So when he talks, people listen, people admire him for his wisdom and experience and information that he gives, and also from his position. He can reward people, he can force people if he wants to, he can actually persuade them, he can confront them if he has to. So this all this is, power tactics that can be used for contributing to the school of management. Any questions here or any thoughts here about power?
No, Professor.
Okay, I'll ask you one question. What are your power bases? What makes you think that you have certain powers of influencing others? What's your source of power?
I think for me, it's like communication.
Hmm?
Good communication is key for everything, especially like if someone needs something or some people don't communicate that well or don't even like explain it good or whatever. So for me, it would be that.
Yeah, I agree. That's a specific skill that you're speaking, Kiara, which you're very good at. I understand you appreciate your strength and you use it for, creating a positive impact. But can you tell me what actually makes your communication powerful?
Could it be the way I communicate? Because everyone communicates differently. I don't know if that makes sense.
I want you to think deeper. That's why I keep
Okay,
asking that
okay, okay,
question.
okay.
Yeah.
I think that it goes deeper in like regarding that I'm a genuine person and everything I say is like is genuine. I don't
Right.
know if that's
It's
answers your
perfect.
question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's personal power that you're drawing from a strong character, certain
Yeah.
values that you actually, make sure you demonstrate your evidence, the way you treat people every day, the way you work with colleagues every day. And this is
Yeah.
amply evidenced by the language that you choose to use to talk to them, to communicate to them. So you're drawing from that inner power that you have. It's just not because of the position somebody gave you. We know this. We are dealing with somebody who's honest, who means what they say, they're equitable, they're fair in their treatment of others. Kiara gives that kind of respect, and she has this sense of dignity for everything that she has in life. And that's why when she says something, we sit up and take notice and we want to, listen to her. We want to be influenced by her. We tend to be persuaded by her argument more than we would if someone else was saying the same thing, right?
Thank you. That's so sweet.
Yeah, so that's, we all have that sense of power. And then I'm sure, Kiara, part of that communication skills comes from the fact that you're credentialed, you're educated, you draw in from your experiences, you have a great observation skill, you analyze things really well, you cut the clutter out of your mind, you give, clarity of, you create a pathway for everyone to understand easily, you get them engaged, you get them connected, you draw in their commitment, you can convince them, you can inspire them. I think all these things, you're drawing your power from plenty of sources, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice. Likewise.
Yeah, we all have some source of power, but we want to use that power for good reasons,
Yeah.
or else we don't want to use it. If we start using it for our own personal benefits, that's where we get into the area of playing politics, being manipulative, taking undue advantage of the situation or of people who do not have the same power base in societies. So leaders use power as a means of attaining group goals. That's exactly what someone like Kiara wants to do. It's just not for her betterment, her development. She cares for the team and she knows the team benefits. She also grows. And she wants to demonstrate that she cares for everyone around her and she's not selfish. So, goal attainment of team goals makes her talk well, lead a strong ethical life, a life which has plenty of values in it, and she doesn't have to talk about it because people can see evidence it, and that's the key. So obviously if you want to discover the leader in you, you got to understand you have this potential of power within. And you can draw that power basis from experience, from knowledge, from wisdom, from sense of character. All these things make you that much more powerful. And of course, as you gain experience, you have so many credentials. Your resume speaks about you. When people Google you, they find so much about you. You don't have to go bragging about this is what is me. There are facts that you can see. They say, as they say, rest is history. So, you over a period of time, your power becomes stronger, your circle of influence becomes wider. Right now, Kiara, you might be influencing X number of people. As you grow in life, as you gain that much more experience, your circle of influence becomes much, much wider. You influence greater number of people, greater number of teams at different levels in the organizational hierarchy, maybe different elements from the society. So your influence is becoming wider and that your impact is getting bigger. So imagine you would generally think, oh, Kiara is just one individual in a population of, say, 9 billion people the planet has. But Kiara is big in terms of how many years that she's increasing her circle of influence and how many number of people she's impacting. On an average, Kiara, in your lifetime, you would influence at least minimum 10,000 people as I see it. And that can increase based on how much you want to dive into yourself and figure out the leader in you, and how much align yourself with a bigger cause. You have a mission which is beyond being personal, and that's why you think you are being brought into this world for a bigger cause, and you put everybody in front of you and you at the last. If you can keep aligning yourself like that, your path will illuminate and you will begin to see a bigger cause for you, and you self actualize, right,
Yeah.
Kiara?
Yeah.
So that's important. Goal compatibility. Yeah, go ahead, please, if you want to say something.
No, no, no. Everything you said is amazing, and like you're right. Like I might be just one individual, but when you see the greater picture, like you have no idea how many people you influence, and you're right. Like that's why it's good to be like a genuine person, to speak respectfully to others. All these things that you mentioned, like you're totally right.
Yeah, and also at the same time, you work on building your credentials, creating those skills and competences which are unique and that
Yeah.
make people want to go to you and go first to you rather than go to someone else. It's because
Yeah.
you're special, you're unique, and you're willing to help. And you know that, I mean, suppose I'm going to approach you. I know if I go to Kiara, I can trust her abilities, I can trust her wisdom, I can trust that she cares for my growth, and I'm sure she will champion my cause. So that sense of trust and ability to, depend on somebody, that comes because Kiara has worked on her skill sets, her competences, and she's built a portfolio of credentials that are so strong, right?
Yeah, I also feel like every day is a chance to learn something new, and one
Absolutely.
should never stop working on oneself. Like everyone should be constantly working to be the best self of themselves.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
good you talked today, Kiara. Today you're my example for the class, right? Yeah. So explain formal power and personal power. This is what we are talking of. Formal power comes from your ability to influence actions because you have this force. Sometimes you have to be coercive. I know it might sound, you might become defensive and say, how do you force people to do something? Suppose you're dealing with people who just are immature in terms of their understanding, in terms of their personality traits. They just haven't had the exposure and experience that they can understand the big picture, as Kiara was talking about. You might want to force a little bit, and not in manipulative ways, not in ways that destroy people, but in ways to say, no, this has to be done. Being assertive definitely helps the organization create a structure, not for everything to drift and fall apart. You want to maintain one cohesive team, and you have to sometimes say, this is the policy. We cannot compromise here. We don't want to put the entire team and the organization on the line. So sometimes you might have to stamp your authority by being coercive. Yeah, that comes from the formal power, from the position that you're being given. Reward power, again, from the position power that you have, from the whatever, wherever you fit in the organization. Suppose you're the president of the organization, you have plenty of reward power, you have plenty of coercive power. They might say we might form a committee to say who should be fired, who should not be fired, the pros and cons, the data analysis, blah blah blah. but eventually the president decides, right? And that means formal power is huge, legitimate position power, power that comes from, again, the position that you have in the organization. So the key responsibilities, who takes decisions on the grade? Your professor, legitimate. He or she is a professor for a reason. They've gone through a hiring process. They have the credential and longitudinal experience, and they are qualified to teach from AACSB standards. And the professor knows exactly that, this is supposed to be the process that has to be done in the grading, and this is your grade. It's legitimate power. So formal power, again, it's not very, it doesn't inspire so much because it's formal power, but you got to use your formal power to the best effect possible. Sometimes formal power is required, like the first one and second one, reward power. What if I keep on telling Kiara, you do a great job, but it never translates into anything, you know, monetary, extrinsic? Kiara will say, I like you, professor. I like your leadership, but I don't see myself growing in terms of, I want a better pay. I want to build a home. I want to have a mansion of my own that I can call my dream house. But it's not helping. All the great things that you say, you don't reward me enough. So it's not always the intrinsic reward, which is okay. But you also have to have the power to reward people extrinsic. And if you did that, she'll say, okay, this is a great place to learn, have professional development, grow as an individual. We have great colleagues, a wonderful boss, but they also take care that they reward me equitably. For somebody else doing the same kind of job in another organization, they get the same pay, they get the same bunch of benefits, the perks and whatever allowances that are there. I'm happy with that. So Kiara will appreciate when you have some reward power, power that comes from the legitimate position that you have as a boss. So formal power, extremely important. Personal power is what we were discussing at the beginning of the class, expert power and referent power. These are very personal powers. Suppose if I say, I've been the director of accreditation maintenance, I've met peer review teams from several universities, we've done several accreditation visits, and we have done really well. I know, several members of the AACSB peer review teams, and that is referent power. I know I'm very familiar with accreditation in Abu Dhabi. I'm familiar with accreditation in Jordan, in India. That's referent power. I know people. I'm connected. I'm networked. And that makes me powerful, guys. Remember this. You're as powerful as your network. Don't think you personal power is great. Your wisdom, your knowledge, your character, your ethical stance, all that makes you powerful. No doubt about it. But you want to develop a strong network because that's referent power. Suppose you go out of job today, or they say, oh, you have your last 3 months before you're asked to leave. We don't want to fire you, but we told you politely that you might want to step down and leave. Well, your network is so strong, you'll find 10 jobs. That's referent power. How many people will speak on your behalf? How many people will say, for example, I want to go about and saying, Kiara is a great student. She's wonderful as a human being, a wonderful colleague. She brings to the table these set of skills and competences. She's extremely credentialed. She has demonstrated her leadership qualities. And this is what she has done and the kind of impact she has created. You want more people like Prabhakar to tell these same things about you, Kiara. And if you did that, you're expanding your referent power. Why would we say that? Because of your expertise, of your knowledge, of your personal power, of the kind of individual, the kind of human being you are. So we are referring to your personal power, and we are happy to, say and reference and recommend your name. So power comes from different sources, formal and personal power. So there is some research to show that personal sources are most effective. We work not for companies, trust me, guys. We work for a great manager. We work for a great leader because personal power is so strong. And I've always believed if you're doing a program like a business program, I think a professor should be a mentor, a guide, rather than just being the formal professor, the teacher who says they are always correct. We don't need such people. We need people who have the personal aura, that kind of personal energy that they want to transfer to their students. They appreciate, they recognize each student's unique abilities. And they also understand that every individual student has this great potential to discover great things. And every student has this unique pathway. What is good for Kiara is not good, perhaps the perfect pathway for Chris, not the perfect pathway for someone else. So each of you can determine your own pathway and you can discover the best person that you are. And as long as you do that, and as long as the professor lets you do that, I think the professor is a great teacher, not just teaching the content of the course, but telling you to explore, expand your ways of thinking, think outside the box. And that's what a professor must do. So I would think personal sources are very, very effective, and research also proves that. Both expert and referent power are positively related. These are expert and referent power are personal sources, are positively related to employee satisfaction with supervision, their organizational commitment, and their performance. So if you have this personal power, you get employees' commitment, the buy-in to the decisions itself. They have that much more job satisfaction. They're happy with their leader, for they stay with you for longer periods of time. It will not result in extreme turnover. You don't want employees, smart people, talented people like here to come and go. We find it difficult to get them. We invest in their training and their development. We compensate them. And imagine if she leaves. It'll be sad because the cost of acquiring someone like Kiara is going to take a time, a lot of time, and lots of money and effort as well. So expert and referent power that stems from leadership, extremely important in retention. So I just want to tell you how you can become powerful and how you can exercise this power to create positive impact for your organization, for your team, and eventually for yourself. Then you look at reward and legitimate power, reward power, coercive power. These are all formal powers. Reward and legitimate power seem to be unrelated to these outcomes. Strange. They don't get people to be more satisfied, and they're not getting them committed. Not necessary that this research is applicable in all contexts and all cultures, but this is coming from certain research. Coercive power usually backfires. If I try to force something on you, you don't like it. Say, professor, we are responsible. Why do you have to force us to do something? Imagine you don't enjoy coming to my class. What's the fun if I'm the best professor in the world? I know every possible theory out there. It's of no use. So trying to force somebody to do something, trying to be overly manipulative, it's just going to backfire. So these coercive power bases, sometimes useful for creating some structure to stamp your authority, to draw a line, to have compliance with a policy, they might be useful, beyond which they might just backfire. You lose your employees, you lose your students' confidence and trust in you, and they're not going to learn. They're not just going to take away anything. They might have paid money for this course. They're spending time there, but they're just going through the motions. They just do not want to take away anything. It's of no value. You don't want to do that. This is the general dependency postulate. Strangely, everything that we talk in OP comes from the East, from the Western thought. I'm sorry, from the Western philosophies. It comes from psychology, social psychology, sociology, anthropology, and I can tell you about what is there in the slide, but I want to tell you a little bit more. Dependency. They say, when you possess anything that others require, but only you control, you make other people dependent on you. How sad. I have a different perspective. I think everybody is equally capable. I don't think I possess anything special that you don't. All of you are as unique and special as me. So I'm bringing in a very philosophic approach, but what your slides simply say, you want to become unique, and that's why people depend on it. It could be unique in terms of leadership, your interpersonal skills, your communication skills, your technical skills, your experience, your longitudinal, credentials and demonstrated capabilities. These make other people dependent on you. Very much, focused on the personality ethic. Develop a strong sense of personality, which drives impact, which creates positive impact for an organization. This is personality ethic. But for me, the way I look at it is the character ethic. You draw power from within, and everybody has that power to draw from within. If I can draw from within myself, you too can. You don't have to be dependent on XYZ individual because you have everything within. The source of power is a cosmic source. It's there everywhere. All that you have to do is to be aware, that continuous awareness of the great potential that you have, and to continue to channelize your efforts in the right direction. I'm telling you, the world will show you a way. I never looked up to XYZ to tell me what to do. I just listened to the inner voice that's there within. And if you did that every day, constantly, and you're being honest to what you're doing, I think the world will show you how to journey. Do we actually tell a river to flow the way it has to flow? Do we determine its path? I think every season it takes a different turn, right? We don't determine any path. Nothing is programmed in this world here. It's a very organic journey. So my understanding of dependency is only on yourself. I shouldn't be dependent on XYZ, not on extraneous factors. You have it all. So forgive me if I'm disagreeing with this slide, but the slide simply says, make yourself so skilled, so good, with your leadership, interpersonal skills, technical skills, all the credentials that you have, that people become dependent on you and you become that much more powerful. Okay, I beg to disagree. That's my perspective. I just taught you the Eastern philosophy a bit more. Okay, so what creates dependence, greater dependence is importance. Suppose you have a skill. Kiara has a certain set of skill, which is extremely important. And it's scarce. Not many people have it. Non-substitutable. She has a skill, or she has access to research or information, credential, which cannot easily be substituted. So we all become dependent on Kiara. That's how power relationships are defined, because dependence increases Kiara's power to influence all of us. We submit ourselves to be influenced by Kiara. She doesn't have to try and persuade us. All that she has to say is one word and we'll take it, because she's so powerful, right? The organizational structure, sociogram that you might want to call it. Suppose you have this Thomas here. Imagine how many people are connecting with Thomas and talking to Thomas. You have project team members, two people, Albert and Eric, talking to Thomas. You have one from the salesperson here, he's talking to Thomas. One guy from the customer service or the entire customer team talking to Martha, and Martha is again talking to Thomas. And finance is connected via Anne and Martha to Thomas. So there's so many people who are connected to this person called Thomas. It's obviously very powerful. Other people here in the power structure, Martha is pretty powerful, Anne is pretty powerful, but Thomas, extremely powerful, because they are all getting connected to Thomas some way or the other. The less powerful ones are here, suppliers, peripheral to the organization, finance guys. I'm surprised, because I think finance would come somewhere in the center. But anyway, this is just for an example. Sometimes, you might want to replace this with, say, New York campus, Long Island campus, our Vancouver campus, some China campus, Jordan or Abu Dhabi campus. Sometimes you might say, oh, these campuses are peripheral. They're not being that important. You might want to connect them a bit more, because we want to influence them. We want to transfer the core competences across the campuses. We want to ensure the high quality education everywhere. We want to keep our accreditation every campus possible. So we want to make them more central. That means we want to establish more contacts between campuses, between departments, so that they feel that sense of power. They have control of what is happening there. Did you get it? Do you understand what I tried to explain using the organizational structure?
Yeah.
So where do you want to be is up to you. If you choose to be on the fringes, lay low and keep a low profile and not talk too much, I think you will not get here. You'll not become that powerful. Suppose you want to reach here, it must be that you demonstrate several skills that cut across departments, that cut across campuses, and that you're multi-skilled. And eventually you make your way to becoming more powerful towards the center, to the power center, basically. So guys, don't stop. If you're good in one thing, you might want to become good in something else as well. You're skilled in certain things, you've demonstrated your ability to create positive outcomes in one area. You might want to do the same thing in the second, and then the third. In that way, you're becoming more central to the mission, central to the organization, and you become that much more powerful. and more people and departments will become dependent on you. So I just want you to understand how you can become powerful in a good way. Okay, let's not think about power always being negative. You can become powerful in a good way. Like right now, suppose I'm the director for the MBA program. I don't think, oh, I'm all powerful and this is a great position to have. I keep thinking every student's problem is mine. If they have issues with scheduling, can I fix it quickly? Can I remove some bottlenecks which is troubling my MBA students? I'm a servant of all. I want to assist them. So with power comes a lot of responsibility. With a position comes plenty of accountability. If I'm not able to do service to my students, what's the use of this crazy position and power? So I have a very different take on power. Power makes you more humble. And then that humility makes you even more powerful. It's a beautiful thing. As you draw more power and you don't cannibalize on other people's power, you don't want to depend on, you know, being coercive on others. And that's when you can draw from within. You're much more giving. You're much more accommodating that way. So I think power is a big time abused perspective concept. And that's why we have so much of politics in organizations. We want organizations to work in ways that you feel like going there. Companies like Google, for example, there's a lot of distribution of power. It's not highly centralized, it's extremely decentralized. Everybody feels a sense of ownership and belongingness to the company because they're valued. So even large organizations like Google, stuff that I'm talking is not just for ideals and values that are nice to be discussed in classes, but they're actually put into practice. Great companies draw on the value system. Okay. Now, influence tactics. How can you actually influence others using your power, legitimacy, suppose you have a clear policy, you have clear standards, and you have a clear stance. You can use all those rational ways of doing things, the legitimate reasons of influencing others. Rational persuasion, like suppose if I were to tell you guys, please do some certification in analytics, for example. You might say, sir, we already have these many assignments, these many courses, so many exams to do, and we have to take care of our families and personal responsibilities. So I can't force you to do something, but all that I can do is tell you a logic, a rationale. Go to Indeed, search for the jobs that talk for analytical kind of jobs. It could be HR analytics or market analytics or financial analytics. Look at the number of jobs that go for project managers, people who can do multiple things at the same time. They're multi-skilled. So go to Indeed, go to LinkedIn, go to other places, monster.com, other job sites. Look at all the kinds of jobs and skill sets that these companies are looking for, and then say, what do you think you should have in terms of becoming more employable? So I'm using a very rational perspective to persuade you to do something beyond the bachelor's. Inspirational appeals, you can have people who are very charismatic, right? We talked about leadership a lot. So you can inspire people by being a role model. Luckily, me, as growing as a child, I grew up in a school where I had the opportunity to see extremely accomplished people in political life, in the field of music and art, in the fields of science, physics, all kinds of great people. I had a chance to see them as a little child. And the greatest thing that I observe from them is their ability to influence us in positive ways. They're extremely credentialed, but they're also very humble. When you come across such kind of people, they don't have to say much. You feel inspired and you will be influenced. So that you can do because you have this standing, this high standing of having achieved a lot, and people look up to you as being a role model. They can inspire you, they can persuade you, they can actually influence you. Consultation, if you bring in with you a bunch of credentials and abilities, you're an expert in several fields, you can be a consultant. And then consultation is a lot of money as well. So even within the organization, you can work like a consultant to exercise your power. Suppose I'm working with strategic planning and 3-year strategic planning for the NYIT. I also work with, say, external relationships and financial sustainability team. I'm also working with another team at the NYT level for financial literacy of students and faculty and families. And then I also work with, for the School of Management as continuity of operations and leadership team. When you work in several areas, you get that kind of knowledge and skill sets that make you a consultant. So your power is coming because you have that kind of a wide exposure of certain things that you've done. So consultation is the ability to pull in a lot of ideas from others and your expertise as well, and then ability to convince them. Exchange, I think you understand. Suppose I gave you this kind of support from my team. What is that you can do for my team? Now, between departments, collaboration happens as an exchange. This is an influence tactic. I'm ready to do this for you. Can you do this for us? Personal appeals. I can personally, appeal to you. Do this, guys. Suppose, for example, I put those surveys, right? I'm trying to appeal to you. Please do the surveys. How many of you did the survey? The two surveys?
I did.
I
Thank
did
you.
only the first one, Professor.
I also did the first.
Try do the second one as well. That's a personal appeal. Okay.
Where can I find the second one?
I think it's there in the same, there are two links which you share.
Oh, okay.
First link is the first survey. The second link is the second survey.
Thank you.
That's a personal appeal. I can only appeal to you. I can't force you. It's not part of the course. You're not mandated. You're not obliged to do it. It's a personal appeal. Now, these two surveys are done by the School of Management to see inclusion, diversity, and leadership and team management, because we have a large body of international students, and we want to see how you work in teams. This is a research, me, Professor Shweting, and two other professors from other universities. We are doing it jointly. So we're collecting this data to figure out how we can have greater diversity, greater inclusion in support of team building, and what's the role of leaders in this. So that kind of thing. So I can only make a personal appeal and say, please do that. Okay, you have it. Maybe if it's open only on 15th of the second survey, if it's only open on the 15th, please do it on the 15th. And we are not very far away from 15th. So I'm sorry if I put 5th of April as a deadline. Yeah, but if it opens on the 15th, you can go back to the second survey and do it on the 15th. Thank you for bringing that to my notice. Ingratiating, it's like you can actually basically praise people and get them to be influenced. You can do that. You can tell all the great things that they do, and you can get them onto your side. Pressure, you understand that. Coalitions. If you are not being influenced by individuals, we can have a team talk to you. Put you in a team which believes something different, and you will be influenced. These are all influence tactics. These are all ways of using power to get other people, be influenced by what you want them to do. So some tactics are more effective than the others. Rational persuasion, if I give you logic, if I tell you why you should do certain certifications, I think you will consider it. Inspire people to do something, inspirational appeals. That's a great way of influencing people. Consultation in the workplace, it's a great thing to do. Pressure tends to backfire. Nobody wants to be pressured. And I think when you apply excessive pressure, it can be a case of workplace harassment as well, right? And other tactics like legitimacy can lessen the negative reactions from appearing to dictate. They're better off than putting extreme pressure. This is again based on research. So there are certain things that have been proved from research. The direction of influence, upward influence. How can you influence your boss? Only through logic, through data, through a rationale. So you have to bring in some logic, collect some extra data, and show him through data analysis what you're saying is absolutely true. That upward influence is possible through rational persuasion. Downward, you can use many of these methods. Lateral, at the same level. Suppose I'm a manager, I have to influence another manager. I can use consultation, exchange, legitimacy, personal appeal, coalition. This is again coming from research. Not necessary that research has to be always the same in different cultures. different contexts and different industries, we might have different, tactics which are useful, which are more effective. So this is what it says. People in different countries prefer different power tactics. Individualistic countries, like say US, for example, see power in personalized terms and as legitimate means of advancing their own personal ends. Collectivistic cultures, like say Japan, they see power in social terms and as being a legitimate method of helping others. I come from those collectivistic cultures where I think power comes from helping others. Maybe true even in the US. It's changing perhaps in the Eastern countries. We're becoming more into individualistic these days, more selfish, more concerned with our own personal ends. So people differ. Again, we can apply power tactics. Why do we do that? Because people differ in terms of their political skill, their ability to influence others. Not everybody is happy interacting with others, trying to influence others. It takes a lot of energy, a lot of political skill as well. Cultures within organizations are different. Some are warm, relaxed, supportive. Others are formal and conservative. Maybe if you're warm, relaxed, and supportive, the amount of politics there is much lesser. I'm not going to say it's not there, but if you have formal structures, bureaucracies, conservative kind of cultures in companies, that is where a lot of politics comes into picture. Can you share your experience with political behavior at the workplace? You don't have experiences of political behavior at the workplace?
Hello?
A little more specific about that?
Like people trying
Yeah.
to have undue influence on you, trying to pressurize you to conform or to agree with a particular strategy or decision, or maybe take away the credit for your work. The credentials have been taken away by someone else, by your boss, by your manager, and you don't get the due recognition that you deserve. These are all political behaviors, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say wasn't sure exactly if it was political, but I recall back when I used to work in like a window assembly factory kind of thing, and a lot of the workers felt that they weren't getting their fair share in terms of pay or treatment, and because of that, they would sort of like in their own way rebel by maybe not being as productive as they could be, not making as many windows as they could, and just because they felt they weren't happy or satisfied with the way they were being treated in their payments. So that was their way to get back almost at the management, the people who were higher up.
And those are important things that you bring up, Arthur. And because this happens all the time, I'm actually putting on the chat a bunch of experiments that were conducted in early 1920s. They're called the Hawthorne experiments. This exactly talks to what Arbor just brought. I'm not going to take time to explain those Hawthorne experiments, but they're very, Elton Mayo and his team members did these experiments, and precisely what Arbor said. Because of political behaviors, because of undue influence, employees, workers do not produce as much as they should be producing. They're not as effective. They don't contribute as much because they're not trusted and they're not championed. So it's sad because people who are in power, they lead people to places of their own interest ahead of others. Powerful people react most often negatively to threats to their competence. They also are very overconfident with their own decision making. Power doesn't affect everyone in the same way, but there are even positive effects of power, as we just discussed before.
I think in that particular scenario, the workers felt that they had more value just because the company would be nothing without them creating the windows.
Right,
But
absolutely.
the two business partners who had started it they took the risk, they put the investments in, so they felt that they should have received most of the you know all pretty much most of the money, and they gave them the opportunity to work. So I think there was just a lack of communication in that particular instance.
Yeah, and people with positions and all kinds of power that they might have, they might indulge in dysfunctional activities, and they can abuse their power in crazy ways, which can be sexual harassment at the workplace harassment as well. So favoritism, being prejudiced, being discriminatory. All these things
Hello?
come into picture.
Hello?
Yep.
You can hear me, Professor?
Yeah, I can hear you, Kervins.
Oh, okay, cool. I thought my audio wasn't working. Yeah, I wanted to say something about what you were talking about. I remember this was like a while, I believe it was probably like a month ago when you were talking about how certain jobs, if they like you, they will protect you and everything. And I've seen it happen with my old supervisor for years, and it's been happening before I used to work there. And I used to work at a nursing home before COVID, and my boss, he would get caught with, like, there would be random dramas of my boss getting caught with sexual harassment situations. And it wasn't like his first time. He's been caught with it multiple times, but the job would like him so much because he would sacrifice for the job. He would like screw over his own employees to save the company more money in order to get a Christmas bonus. And because he saved the company a lot of money, they would save his butt. So every time he would get reported for anything, and mainly it would be for sexual harassment, they would send him on a little vacation for a month while they conduct their interview, you know, and then once they're done with the interview, he comes back clear free, you know, and they would do that every single time he gets caught with anything.
And that's sad, because in that case, there should be proper whistleblowers of these kind of
Exactly.
practices. Yeah, it's
Exactly.
sad. It's really sad if they do that.
Yeah, that's that favoritism you were just talking about.
Yeah,
Indeed.
but I completely agree with what you said, because I know instances where somebody has reported to me about, say, being rude to students, being insulted, and that kind of behavior when it's being reported to me. The first thing that I do as being responsible person, being the program director or being a teacher, I would report it to the HR. So it's nothing to do with academics. They're not complaining about tough assignments, very difficult exams, or a ton of material that they have to prepare. It's being just being they're being insulted like crazy, and nobody should be insulted from whichever country, for whatever education, from whatever background. You cannot be insulted, and you cannot be, rude to somebody like that and feel they shouldn't feel discriminated. So I've actually, in my experience, I've reported these instances to the HR. And again, going back to what Kervins was talking, I haven't seen action taken. I don't know
Yeah.
if there was, yeah, I don't know if there was an investigation, or they had a pep talk with the, people concerned. And, because the confidentiality is protected, I would never get to know what happened. And they continue to stay, the complaints continue to happen. So I kind of understand what you're saying, Kervins, but that's sad. It's happening all the time in all kinds of industries. But I think we need to stand up for it and make sure action is taken, and you need to be strong with it. And I've never shied away from reporting incidents that even are about people who might be more powerful than me, and who might be feeling more secure at the workplace than me. I wouldn't care. I've still reported them because I did what was right. And I think more and more people, if we do that, the greater is the chance that these people cannot have a place to hide.
I agree, Professor. If I may, in the workplace, I've learned that you have to look out for yourself. You know, like no one else is going to look out for you. You have to look, even when you have like union, you still have to look out for yourself, because there's been times, there's been times you can complain to union, and union will do their job. But if you truly want to seek the right amount of justice, you have to take that responsibility on your own and, like, report necessary, because supervisors and any superior that's ahead of you, they won't hesitate to report you for something that they saw that you did wrong. So you have to do that on your own. You have to take, your own initiative by reporting someone if you felt that you were either disrespected or you felt something is wrong is happening, because no one is going to report them for you. You have to step up and do that.
And if you did that, Kervins, as you rightly said, I think it sends a strong signal to everyone that they should not be messing around with people for no reason. They become that much more careful.
Yes, I agree.
And, yeah. So you're basically setting a real high standard, saying that I'm not going to take all this nonsense at the workplace. And then the word goes around quickly in organization. The folklore, the stories people tell, The grapevine is very
that
fast.
is so true. Yeah, the
Yeah,
word goes around. Yeah,
right.
once you report something and everything, people finds out that you report.
Right.
You know, and yeah, other supervisors, they find out about you, and they're like, okay, yeah, this dude is always going to report something. So let's be careful the way we talk to him, or let's be careful when we ask this person to do a certain set of tasks. Like they they kind of walk on eggshells when they see that you're not afraid to speak out, you know, because what they like to do is they like to keep people quiet, you know, especially when you complain about something. If you was to bring that complaint to your management before you brought it up to HR, you're technically giving that management a heads up, and he will try to do everything he can to make sure everything. I think you said that last time. You said that they'll try to do everything they can to prevent you from leaving, you know, or to prevent you from seeking other work, because they'll, even though that what they say may sound good, it's only temporary, because things would just go back to being just how it was. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll try to brush it, you know, below the carpet, and then
Indeed.
as if nothing happened, and then hush it up completely, and then these, you know, the ugly head comes back again and again, right?
Indeed, it does. Yeah.
So political behavior, as I was just saying, you can withhold information. We have here whistleblowing, spreading rumors, leaking confidential information. I mean, you got to be super careful. I still remember once when we started off in Abu Dhabi campus, we had an instructor display the grades of all the students on his office. So I had to pull it down myself, and then I called up the instructor saying, every student has a right to know their grade, and they don't need to know other students' grades and the breakup of the marks and stuff. That's pretty confidential. And they don't have to know the student IDs of other students if they don't want. And you got to take permission if you want to share that kind of information. This instructor was oblivious to it. You know, he did it in being very innocent, but I had to tell everybody whatever information can be classified as something that can be shared on a public domain as being green, and there are some information which could be having some measure of sensitivity, and you could classify that information as yellow, and there's extremely confidential information which should never get across to any other individual. You can't leave it on a public computer. Even if you downloaded it, you just got to take it off, delete it from all kinds of sources, because somebody can easily take away that information. So all kinds of leaking confidential information, it's very political. And I've seen people, when they leave an organization, they destroy plenty of institutional archives and files. When the previous uh, assistant dean in Abu Dhabi left, he just gave me an empty office with no files at all. I was inheriting nothing. So it was crazy, because it's so sad that people are like that. And this is clearly a case of political behavior. The hate that they have for the institution, for people, scant respect they have for organizational processes. You have all kinds of crazy people working in organizations. Yeah, he just went scot-free, unfortunately, but I had a lot of effort to put in to retrieve information from archives, to ask for data from several sources. We built up a great portfolio of data, because we did great work. It's all there. We don't have to be worried, but it's a lot of effort to pull that back again and be ready for the accreditation. So political behaviors can be all kinds of things that people involved in. And a survey in the US talking about the importance of organizational politics, how do employees get ahead in your organization? Creativity, only 4%. Only 4% responded saying employees get ahead in our organization using creativity. Only 18% said they get ahead in the organization because they have the initiative. Only 27% said employees get ahead in the organization because of hard work. 51% said people get ahead in the company because of politics. That's scary, right? Imagine that's what you're looking at. It might be any place that you're going, as long as you have people. If 51% of the times that people get ahead in the company because they're playing politics, it's scary for especially those who depend on hard work, those who are have the extra initiative, those who are extremely creative, but you cannot play dirty politics, you cannot get ahead. What a shame. It's pretty frustrating. It's demotivating. You just become demoralized, and then you cannot be productive. You cannot be your best self. You suffer mentally. You suffer extreme levels of stress. Your health might take a beating. You might not find an alternative job that easily. Your finances might hurt. Your family might suffer. It's crazy. All the negativity can flow in because people are playing dirty politics. Factors that influence political behavior, individual factors like high self-monitors, internal locus of control, people who are very manipulative, we call them as high MAC personalities, organizational investments, if they have some personal interest, perceived job alternatives, expectations of success. These are all individual factors which drive people, into political behavior. Some of these are good things, but if they go beyond, they may become extremely political. So that's why political behavior can be low towards being extreme political behavior. Low political behavior, I think all of us involved some way or the other. We are all trying to ensure that we are secure. We want to have the continuity of our jobs, that we want our fair share of recognition. We might try to influence our bosses, our peer group, our subordinates, our team members. We're all playing some level of political behavior. We exhibit that. But if it gets high, it just becomes very dysfunctional. It disrupts the harmony of the place. It creates negative impact for the company and for individuals involved. Then organizational factors that contribute to political behavior, resources. Resources are scarce, and people want to have the first grab of the best resources possible. Suppose you have software, and I can only give 5 people in this class access to that software, and it's a valuable software, assuming that. Political behavior can come in because resources are limited. Promotion opportunities, not everybody can get promotion, not everybody can get a tenure if they're in teaching. Low trust, I don't trust you, and that's why I have to indulge in political behavior. Role ambiguity, I'm not sure what is my future. Unclear performance evaluation system, why is that person being promoted? Is it fair? Is it equitable? All that what Kervins was talking about. Zero-sum reward practices, somebody's gain is someone else's loss. That's crazy. That kind of reward system will make people behave politically. Democratic decision making, India, US, very similar. We have too much of democracy, too much of freedom, and a lot of politics because of that. So there are the flip side of democracy and freedom and autonomy. There is a flip side of it. We have too much politics, and we don't know who's benefiting and whether the general public is going to benefit from Democrats or Republicans. God knows whether they'll make a huge difference. High performance pressures that can create political behavior. Self-serving senior managers who are narcissistic, selfish. They just think about taking all the credentials of what the team is doing. If something goes wrong, they blame it on the team. If something is going good, they say it's all because of them. All these factors create the reasons why we are political. Can be low versus high. You want to get into companies which have low political behavior. Hopefully you're lucky, touch wood. If you get into companies that are high on political behavior, I'm telling you, it's very, very hard. It's easy to deal with technology, deal with other things. Extremely challenging to deal with people. That's the first reason why we are studying org behavior. Favorable outcomes are there. There are rewards up for the grabs. You want to avoid punishments or being fired. And that's why you want to indulge in this kind of behavior. So the result of organization politics obviously are negative. The job satisfaction goes down, anxiety and stress is there. You want to leave the company, you're not as productive. And these are obvious things that happen because of organization politics. So imagine if you have some experience, you can share it, how much of politics you've gone through. And you can actually compare and contrast a company that had less politics with a company which had more politics. Do you have that kind of experience? No? Now, causes and consequences can also be defensive. If you look at the top one, they're pretty visible, they're pretty offensive, but they can be defensive kind of behaviors from political behaviors. Overconforming, passing the buck. I cannot tell you how many people I've worked with. They simply say, it's not my job. Have you seen that? I'm not supposed to do, I'm not paid for this. It's not there in my job description. playing dumb. I didn't know this. I'm not aware of it. Even if you send the same email 10 times around, they'll say, I didn't know it. I didn't see it. I didn't know. You didn't tell me. It was a group email. Stretching. You just continue to, postpone and prolong the task. Stalling. You can simply say no, 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 and stop some progress. You can do all of that. Sometimes this is avoiding action. But if you want to avoid blame, what are the defensive behaviors? Bluffing, you could do that. Playing safe, you don't take extra risk. You try to justify what's happening. People give all kinds of reasons, right? Lame excuses. So these are trying to avoid the blame. So I had people who came up with, plagiarism reports of 50%. No, professor, it's not because of me. The software doesn't work really well. It works against us. I'm like, I'm using the same software for everyone. Turnitin.com is universally accepted in the field of academics. I'm using the same thing for all students. You can justify why you would have 50% similarity index when you submit your reports on Canvas on using Turnitin. So you can justify that. You have to write it in your own words. I can understand 25% because of references, similarity in certain choice of words, but at least it can be as high as 50%. Scapegoating, when things are going terrible, your sales are going down, customers are going down, your revenues, profits are hurting, you just want to fire somebody. Have you seen the top level executive managements, the CEOs, the CFOs, the CIOs, do they take a pay cut? No, they simply fire people at the lowest level. That's called scapegoating. Have you seen that happen? Thousands, hundreds and thousands of people
Yeah.
losing jobs. Yeah, go ahead.
There was this moment where I believe my job was having like a financial crisis, and it laid off and depleted like half the employees' hours, and a lot of people were not getting paychecks. Like sometimes their paychecks were delayed, and a lot of people wasn't getting paid whatsoever. And a lot of people got laid off. They laid off the more experienced folks, like people who's been working there for longer years, but like not management. So they were getting laid off first, and then everyone else was getting laid off after. I got laid off as well. My hours were cut in half, and for the longest, people were pissed. So the management were saving, like you said, they cut employees and able to make sure that they had enough money for themselves. And that's what happened. They didn't care about the employees whatsoever. People just left, and things just got worse from there.
Yeah, it's very sad what the pandemic has done. I know how many people have lost their jobs, and it's crazy the kind of decisions that are taken. Imagine if the whole organization took a 5% or 10% pay cut, you can save more jobs. And I'm sure when things turn around, they get better, you can get back to your old salaries. But sadly, leadership in several organizations, nobody actually shows that commitment to save others' jobs. Leadership is not leadership. And I think it was Arbor who said that we don't find true leaders anymore. It's getting to that point. It's very evident. We used to believe as children that there are leaders. And for years together, we gave those examples in classrooms saying, this company has this CEO and he or she is a great leader. And then we eventually happened to discover all the skeletons fall off from the closets, plenty of fraudulent practices and embellishment, misrepresentation, doing all kinds of crazy stuff, which are hurting stakeholders, employees, the brand image itself. Oh, but that's what top management does. And what Curvens is saying again, it's the lack of leadership, and it's too much of politics being played, and for selfish reasons. So you can have other consequences of political behavior which avoid change, prevention to prevent a threatening change from occurring. Some people always go back 40 years ago, this was working, we should go back and do that. How do you think you don't want something to change. You don't see the necessity to change because you think 40 years ago something worked, it has to work today. I mean, people want to avoid change because they think they know the best. And they think from their experience that it worked before and it has to work now. Self-protection, people want to protect their own self-interest. Again, what Curvins was saying, And then they manipulate information. They can do all kinds of things because they want to avoid change. Impression management, again, this is a continuation of what we're talking in terms of political behavior. You want to create a strong impression. You want to manage the impression of others, their impressions about you. And you have a small window, like especially if you're going for an interview, assume that you're facing an interview, job interview. You have like 30 minutes to create an impression, right? So impression management is a very interesting topic. You have 30 minutes to create an impression. Tell me how much you should prepare, and tell me how much you should understand the panel who's listening to you, and tell me how much should your understanding be of the company that you're applying, and tell me how much of things that you should know that you're bringing unique to this organization to give them adequate reason why they should hire you over the others. So impression management is a great thing to study. You want to prepare yourself really well because you have just 30 minutes to prove yourself, to create a lasting impression. They want to call you back and say you are in the final list, right? And you're in the top 3. We want to talk to you again. We give you greater time for showcasing what you have to offer. So I think impression management is something that people use, but they can use it in negative sense because they can create false impressions. They can misrepresent information and create a different impression on their bosses. People are doing that, and that's why it can become political as well. I talked about the positive side of impression management, like in a job interview, but in the organizations, people try to create an impression by putting only that data which their bosses want to listen to, selective representation of information, or maybe falsely reporting information. Numbers can be fudged, and they always are playing numbers to make them look good, especially if it is in their favor. So they're managing others' impressions of them to keep their jobs, and that's pretty much political. Ethics of behaving politically. What is the utility of engaging in politics? I don't see much. But yeah, you might sometimes play politics to save your department, to save your business. You might have to play that politics, but do it if it's really useful for the company. How does the utility of engaging in the political behavior balance out any harm it'll do to others? I'm not sure. Once you start playing politics and then you're being manipulative, it'll come to bite you. So I don't think you're going to help others in any way by doing the wrong thing at the first place. Does the political activity conform to standards of equity and justice? And definitely not. So implications, I think we talked several implications. Increase your power, like we are talking to begin with in the class, at the beginning of the class, talked about Kiara's example. She can become more powerful because of the type of person she is and the skills that she has, accumulated over a period of time and the experience that she has. That means she's increased others' dependence on her, and that's why she has that power. You will not be alone in attempting to build your power, Kiara. There are other people who will try to do the same thing. So the key is to have those unique skills and unique abilities, what you can actually become more powerful because there are several people trying to do the same thing. And this battle continues. The politics will continue on. Try to avoid putting others in a position where they feel they have no power. That's sad. If you see all the battles that have been fought in the past, all the historical battles, it's because they made others feel powerless. When the colonial rule was there in India for 200 plus years, the Indian population was made to feel powerless. They destroyed the culture. They destroyed that sense of self-esteem, the sense of self-belief. An entire population, an entire country, more than the riches that they took away from India, they destroyed the sense of self-belief that the country had. 200 years of rule, can you imagine? Submissiveness, they gave orders, they did not give opportunities, they did not treat them with respect. 200 years of subjugation, of insult. I mean, how much of destruction is that? Can any X number of dollars compensate that? No, because you've destroyed generations together. How long will it take for a country to come back and become powerful again? Maybe several more generations to have this sense of belief and create the infrastructure, have this understanding that we are equal among everyone. I'm giving you the example of India, and I'm sure there are several other countries, regions in the world which have gone through the same kind of crisis, before they got their independence. It's sad, you should never, people with power cannot do that, destroying the entire edifice of a country, the strength of self-esteem and self-belief. I should be having respect for myself. Imagine if you destroy that, I'm as good as dead, right? So you should never, as a leader, you're not supposed to destroy somebody's self-esteem. That's the last thing that you should even think of doing in your life. So by assessing behavior and political frameworks, you can better predict the actions of others. I think this whole chapter is about your appreciation that power is important. Power has different bases and sources, that power can be used for positive things, but power can be abused in several different ways in how you can influence others, and the kind of frustrations and detrimental impacts you can create in employees, and the politics that can come up because of people playing and abusing their power in different ways. So if you're aware of it, you know how to deal with it and how to come up with the right strategies dealing with such people. Consider that employees who have poor political skills or are unwilling to play the political game generally relate perceived organization politics to lower job satisfaction. We talked about that. They have increased sense of anxiety, they feel more stress, and then they want to leave that particular organization. To be honest, if somebody were to ask me, sir, you worked in India, you worked in Jordan, Abu Dhabi, and you're working in the United States, what's the biggest difference that I've had in my career? Just the measure of politics. In India, the politics is intense because the number of people are more competing for the same resources, for the same promotion, for the same rewards, for the same organizational benefits. The politics is intense. It's just crazy. But then when I flew to Jordan, you don't talk to as many people, not so many people competing for those resources. I had so much of peace of mind. I just enjoyed that quiet time in Jordan. I felt as if I was on an extended holiday. And I don't know if you're aware, Jordan has one of the most beautiful places in the world. Petra, Dead Sea, Aqaba, Madaba, all these places are amazing. All the biblical sites as well. I've been to Jordan River, where Jesus was baptized. These places are historical, and the vibes that you get there, just intense. So I enjoyed. I'm not a practicing Christian, but still I went there and felt, the strong positive vibes of all these biblical sites. I just want to tell you, you got to have space and time for yourself in that quiet and not engage in continuous politics because it's exhausting. It just draws away from your positive energy and you can't be creative anymore. So if you ask me what is the biggest thing that I've experienced going, people are just the same everywhere. People in India are nice, kind, and compassionate. So is the case with Jordan and people in Abu Dhabi. And so is the case in America. Here, I find the same kind of, people are people. Pain is common for all. It doesn't have any ability to distinguish, oh, you're Indian, you're American, you're Chinese, you're Brazilian. Pain is common for all. And I realized that in my life very quickly. Human beings are same across the globe, right? Yeah, you were raising a question. Somebody wants to ask a question. Please go ahead. Xuanchen, you had a question? Please. Because I'm done with my chapter as well, so I can stop sharing here. We can